Hello, everyone. We're excited to be here today and being joined by HyperEquity. We're going to be meeting with both Dallin and Derek, who are going to be going over how to create an AI job matching agent. I'm really excited about this session and being able to kick things off with both of them. And one of these, this has been one of our most interest driving sessions that we've done so far in this series. We've had a ton of interest in this. And I think that in this day and age, a lot of people are trying to understand how can we leverage AI in any role? What are those different capabilities that we can do to really not just improve on, I think the focus sometimes is on technology, but from like a human interaction and in human resources roles, how can we do that? And there's some of these key capabilities and things that we're doing manually today that can really be optimized. So I'm really excited to be joined here by both Dallin and Derek and being able to kick this off. Derek Blad, who's the compensation director at Brigham Young University, has a lot of years of experience in this area. So excited to hear from you. And then also Dallin Johns, the CEO and founder of HyperEquity. Welcome both of you. And Dallin, I'm going to kick it over to you to kind of continue the conversation and go through the different areas that we're going to be focused on for today.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. Let me start by just giving a little background into mine and Derek's relationship. Derek and I used to work together at Brigham Young University, several years ago. He's a master of his trade, but as good as what he does in the compensation world, he's an even better human being. So it's just a pleasure to be with Derek today. He's done some awesome work in this stuff. So he's going to be the main presenter, and I'm just going to mostly facilitate. Maybe I'll ask a few questions here and there. But Derek, would you advance the slide real quickly? I want to, as you are, as those of you who have attended one of my webinars before, you know that we want to offer something, want to give you something that you can use. So throughout today's presentation, this QR code will pop up. It's a QR code that'll take you to a toolkit that you can use to start your AI-powered survey job matching. So you can scan it now. It'll come up later as well. But while it's on your screen, I want to kick this off with a quick story. This story actually goes back to my days working at BYU with Derek. I was fortunate enough to be able to work there while a couple of my kids were attending school at BYU. So on occasion, they would come in and have lunch with me or whatever. It was a blast. It was one of the highlights of my career. I loved it. I was sitting with my son at lunchtime one time in my office, and he was asking me, "Dad, tell me what you do." I'm trying to explain it to him. And he was studying computer engineering at the time, and he was learning how to code and all that. He, by the way, has also helped me now to build some of my software. But at that time, I was voicing some frustration to him. I said, the worst part about doing compensation work is matching jobs in a survey, reading job descriptions and comparing them all day. It's just the worst. I have not met anybody in my career who does compensation who actually likes this part of the job. It's the worst. So I asked him at the time, I says, do you think that it's possible to create a program that would compare two job descriptions, or take one job description rather, and a whole bunch of other job descriptions and find the one in the other surveys that most match? And he's like, yeah, I think we could do that. We never did. It was all just talk at the time. But now here we are, and Derek has solved this problem using AI. I hated it back then, and I knew there was a solution to this, but I'm hoping today, Derek, that you could convince me that problem solved. We don't ever have to do this again manually. It can be done automatically. That's what you're going to do for us today, right?
Wow, I mean, that's quite a promise. I think let's bring it down a couple of notches here. It's a very generous introduction. And yeah, like Dallin said, I'm Derek Blad. And I think, it's very telling as I've worked with our AI lead at BYU, and he's phenomenal. He's such an incredible IT mind. And he told me something a couple of weeks ago that really stuck out to me in terms of AI that I think is such a healthy mindset to have. And he said, Derek, what I've learned over, since the advent of AI, having needed to dive deep into AI and understand it, what I've learned is that if you think you are expert in AI, you are wrong. And he also said, but the flip side is very true too. If you think you are like way behind in AI, you are very wrong as well. And so we're all just in this middle ground of no one is expert, but no one's beginner either. We're here and we're all learning it together. And so I can't promise incredible solutions. I think this is a pretty good solution, but it also has some applicability challenges. Perhaps maybe it doesn't tailor exactly to your organization, but um, I think it's a pretty powerful solution. I've played around in this sandbox, and with that preface, I am not an expert, but I've played around in this sandbox enough to be very dirty, and because of that, I have some experience in this. So hopefully, and that's the really main objective in what I want to present today is hopefully there are some good takeaways and even some work that I can share that can help anyone here using the toolkit and what resources are provided in the toolkit to go back and do it in the tailored, appropriate way in their organizations. And so that's the hope. So here we go.
Let's do it.
The agenda today, you can see it here. I want to start with cautions, of course, then sort of talk about my use case and demo it, by creating an actual agent or project. Either one works. Showing that to you and showing what prompt I have, and then going over some key takeaways, certainly ones that that are going to be important as you pursue this in your areas or in your work to keep in mind so that you can use it still appropriately. So there's that. I want to start off with a French philosopher, Jean Baudrillard, and he actually said this way back, I think more than 20 years ago, and he said, the sad thing about artificial intelligence is that it lacks artifice and therefore intelligence, which I sort of got a chuckle out of. Artifice in this context really is context, though. It cannot, it's not its own agent, at least not yet. And so it doesn't have its agency. It doesn't have the context that we humans do to be able to proactively go solve a problem. It's waiting there. The potential is there. So we need to, and the task is upon us to define that context and give it direction so that it can leverage its logical powers in order to accomplish what we want it to accomplish. Well, starting off with cautions, and we probably all have heard some types of cautions or limitations in AI. I'm not going to dive deep into this because there are other resources there, and I want to spend time on other things. But what's really crucial here is you got to know your data security and privacy environment that you're working within in the AI tool. So know your license agreement between your organization and the AI tool. And if you're using a free version, know what that entails too. That's very, very important. And then the other thing, of course, is know the potential flaws and limitations, like hallucinations and so forth. There are lots of videos out there. I prefer actually this video that I've provided a link to. It'll be in the toolkit. But you can at any moment, and I highly recommend this, go out to YouTube, find a 5 to 10 minute video, and watch it in highlighting the different flaws and potential limitations that exist in AI. It's good at masking those limitations. They're not visible on the surface. And so it's really incumbent upon us to be aware of those so that we can use our judgment appropriately when we use AI and adjust accordingly. And then also know that this world is rapidly evolving. I think we all know that. You know, in the 8 or so months that I've been playing around in this sandbox here and gotten to this solution, there's been 3 different major model updates with ChatGPT, which is the tool that we use. And with each update comes different behavior. And so sometimes I need to iterate and adjust accordingly. Overall, it's an improvement, which is good, but it is so rapidly evolving. The AI lead that I work with, often he sort of jokingly says, AI really has a 2-week window, product window. And you know, every 2 weeks, something major just happens. And so have that mindset, and that keeps us on our toes, and it's actually sort of healthy. But we should be aware of that. Well, here's my use case. You know, BYU, we are one of the largest private religious institutions, higher education institutions in the world, actually. And at a university, and particularly at BYU, there are a vast diversity of jobs. I mean, we have physicians, we have custodians, we have scientists, we have skilled trades, athletics, everywhere in between. It's just it's a huge world, really, and quite like a small city too. We can sort of run autonomously. Well, when it comes to evaluating jobs, that makes it difficult because there are so many different types of jobs that we need to evaluate. And at BYU, we do a very thorough evaluation on every single one of them, involving several members of a committee all at once. So there's a lot of hours spent on this. At BYU, again, because of the variety of jobs that we have 5 different major salary surveys. You may have more, you may have less. And with each job description that we have to find salary survey matches for, it often takes 30 to 45 minutes to dive into each salary survey, you know, look at the different job families, identify the best one, read through the job descriptions, make sure it's a good match. It takes a long time. And like Dallin said, sometimes it can feel pretty routine and pretty mundane and redundant. And, you know, I thought, wow, how much could AI help us? If it could, how much could it help us? And so I dove into the numbers a little bit. We have about 1,200 job evaluations per year that we conduct. And we spend roughly, on average per year, about 750 hours finding survey matches. That's about 14 hours per week. That's a significant chunk of time. And so my whole question in all this, really before undergoing this journey, was how much can AI reduce that time? I did not go in with the mindset of how much can AI just take on completely, because I think we do need to have the human element looped in, at least at the end, which is so key, because AI implements logic very well. We know that. We get that. There's also some limitations. Again, watch those videos. But I think the true challenge is not so much if it can do the logic and if it can find matches or anything, but really the time it takes for us, the humans, to review and validate the recommendations from AI. What I didn't want this to become is, instead of spending 30 minutes finding a job match, I spend 30 minutes reviewing what it suggests for the job matches. You know, there's no time savings there. And so there's really 2 major parts to building this AI agent. The first is, okay, AI finds and recommends the matches. Great. The second, which is actually, I think, the key, the magic to all this, is that AI responds with a consistent, quickly reviewable format, so I can easily digest it and more quickly make a judgment call and then move on to the next one. So that's the premise of all this. And so more specifically, what I envisioned was an agent that could first summarize the job description back to me. I want to make sure, first of all, that we're thinking the same thing and that it's seeing what I'm seeing in the job description. And then second, finding the 5 strongest survey matches. Third, rating each of those matches based on a rubric that I give it. Fourth, explaining its reasoning on why each of those matches is a strong match. 5, notating any misalignments of why matches might not be good matches or perfect matches, right? Highlighting the weaknesses perhaps, or acknowledging the weaknesses. And then 6, in the end, providing a recommended salary based on the composite of those matches, just so that it gives me a good, quick temperature check or ballpark figure of, based on any previous knowledge that I have about a role, I would anticipate it coming in around X dollars. And so that can sort of be a quick temperature check, like I said. So that's sort of what I endeavored to, how to structure it at least. So the setup, first and foremost, I teamed up with our AI lead, just so critical, and I highly recommend doing that. Maybe you don't have an AI lead, but your IT group, get with someone who knows this stuff, so that you can confirm, which is the second bullet point here, confirm that your AI license, and in our case, our ChatGPT license, was appropriate to be able to work within and didn't violate any of these survey agreements or license agreements that we have. And then finally, along with our AI leads help and tip and support, created a robust AI prompt that could be used in either a GPT, like a custom agent setting, or an AI project setting. And it really operates quite similarly. And so the setup is, I used ChatGPT projects for this. Again, you could use a custom GPT if you have that available. That's great, works very much the same. Projects are a little bit easier for the beginner user and a little bit easier to share out. So if you're wanting your team to use this as a tool, again, it's a little bit easier to share out and then see each other's searches or chats, which is beneficial for us. A chat GPT or a custom GPT doesn't really have that feature. It does have the sharing feature, which again is great as well. And then created the robust instructions for AI and had them and then loaded them in ChatGPT. And then the salary surveys themselves as well. And a note on salary surveys, when you're using this tool, I have found that it's much better to not consolidate, but condense the salary survey like Excel files down a little bit, simplify them, so that instead of the raw, publication that's 100 columns long or so, just condense it down, eliminate the noise, those columns that you don't really need or want the AI to use to do the matches, and condense it down to the pieces of information that you need, you that only you that you need the tool to use, if that makes sense. So in our case, we use base salary, so it's just survey job code, survey job title, survey job description, base salary, right? Condense it down to those 4 columns. That's it, and eliminate the noise, and that really helps the AI tool to operate more efficiently. On a note, in terms of like, hey, what can I use? Or man, I have, my company uses Google, the suite there. Well, this is just sort of a visual to help you understand what's out there in the free plans for each of these tools and the paid plans for each of these tools. So even if you right now don't have an institutional or enterprise plan with an AI tool out there, you could right now go sign up with ChatGPT, the free plan, and do this, create a project and effectively do this. Now it has some limitations, sure. Anyway, so that's just for your knowledge there.
So there's just a reminder, feel free to scan this QR code to get your free AI-powered survey job matching toolkit. Derek mentioned earlier, included in this, if you scan this and click on the download button, you'll get 2 options to download it. One, it'll take you to a landing page. You can download it there. That'll just get you the toolkit, but an email will also be sent to you. If you download the email version, included in that version will be these slides that you're seeing today. So just wanted to make note of that. And this QR code will be at the end as well. So Derek, keep going.
Yeah, great. And so happy to share my work. Again, this is not protected in any way. Please, if you can use it, if it can help you, fantastic, do it. I'm happy to share it. Well, wanted to get into the demo in terms of actually creating this AI project and showing you the prompt, and then showing you how to load the prompt in along with your salary surveys, and then actually run a couple of these in real time. So here we go. I'm going to jump over to a different window here. And so up on the screen, if I can get that up, like perfect, perfect, perfect. This is just a simple Word document. There we go. Zoom in a little bit more. And so I've created this Word document so that I have the prompt outside of AI. It's pretty long. I don't want to just write it in AI, and so I'd recommend doing the same thing. And there's a couple of things here too that I'll point out as far as tips go to help the AI tool think a little bit. Organizing your data, you can use tags such as like a hashtag or a number sign, very much like a bulleted list. And in fact, if you use a bulleted list, I'm sure it would work just fine and pick up on that just fine. I used hashtags here because a bulleted list, it might get a little confused with other symbols that I'm using as well. So just be consistent in your symbol usage. The hashtags are for organization. One hashtag is like the overarching main subject. Two hashtags are section headers. Three hashtags are the subheaders, so on and so forth. A very hierarchical organization. And again, that helps the AI tool understand, okay, there's two hashtags here, so this is a main section, and I should treat this all under the main section, so forth. You'll also see these asterisks. I use these, and again, you could use another symbol if you want, but I use these to highlight specific things that I want the AI tool to focus in on and really emphasize in its logic. So right off the bat, you are a compensation analyst. So AI tool, keep that in mind as you go through all of this. Same with, later on in this paragraph, you must match based on duties and requirements and not on job title alone. And so you'll see that throughout. Thank goodness with AI, we don't need to know how to code. I'm not a coder. I wish I was. I don't know computer language, but I can at least do a little bit of organizing using some symbols. Well, this prompt is organized into 4 different sections, and I can't go into detail in this because we don't have enough time, but I will highlight in general what's in each of these sections. You want to start with the inputs, and so here's one of the main sections, inputs, and there's only 2. One, you're going to see a job description AI, so look for it. And then second, you're going to see these salary survey spreadsheets that I'm going to preload in the project's environment. You're going to have access to AI. So look at those, and they're going to have some column headers, and you're going to see some, these names. Now, if it's not the exact name, infer a similarity. Make that match up so you can calibrate across these surveys. That's the input section. Pretty simple. It might look intimidating, like technically, symbols and everything going on, but honestly, it's just plain English. And then the what to do section, this is the logic portion. So, okay, you're a compensation analyst, AI. Here's what I want you to do more specifically. First of all, parse and normalize the job description. We get many varieties of job descriptions. At BYU, we have the hiring managers write the job descriptions. You can imagine there are so many different styles out there. And if you give it to a faculty member who's used to being long-winded in research articles, get like a 12-page job description. And so this helps it digest it. And you can highlight, hey, focus on these elements that I want you to focus on, and give a little bit of, guiding language to each of those so that it knows, oh, the user wants me to focus on these elements, so I'm going to report on these and understand it and then report it. So that's what that's doing. Another element of this that I think has been quite helpful is to have AI create a keyword and synonym set so that I can see what different titles and what different core duties it's trying to search for in the surveys, across the surveys. A lot of the times administrative assistant isn't necessarily called administrative assistant across all surveys, nor do we want it to benchmark against title. And so that's going to be helpful for it to create and for me to see so that I know how it's been thinking. The second subsection of this is the actual candidate retrieval. Go out, find matches. It's actually quite simple. It's a pretty short subject here. And then What I wanted to do is score each candidate based on this scoring rubric. And I put some weightings, I put some topics. This is fully customizable. And so if you want a little bit of a different flavor or methodology, say in your area, your workspace, you can take this and customize it to the day's end. So totally up to you and what you want to do there. And then fourth, select and explain the top matches and specifically the top 5 matches across all the surveys, and then rank them or show highest to lowest, and then provide each the survey name, the job code, the title, the score, the salary survey, or the salary, and then your rationale. And this rationale is going to be key to being able to see. And then lastly, in the logic section here, notate any gaps or any misalignments, acknowledge weaknesses, call them out, and suggest what would be better or what would make the match a perfect match. So you can sort of see already, like, yeah, you're sort of teeing it up so that the response back to me as a user is so easy, because I could just quickly look through this structured format and then understand what's going on there. This next main section is the output format. Again, sort of the magic. I had to do all the logic and prepare for providing an output. Now I'm specifically saying, make it look like this. Provide me the purpose, the core duties, all these elements, put them in bulleted format. I don't want lengthy paragraphs. And then with the top survey matches, I want it in this specific format for every single one of those 5. Give me the survey name, then the job code, then the job title, and then the score. And then on the next line, give me the actual salary. And then on the next line, give me your reasoning. This structure format is so critical because we as humans can digest this information so much more quickly instead of, say, a paragraph format. And then using ellipses, it understands, oh yeah, I just want to replicate what you defined up above. This next section, the notating and the leveling guidance, acknowledging the differences or the gaps or the misalignments, acknowledging the weaknesses, making any other recommendations that would be ideal, so on and so forth in this section. And then the last section in this output broader section is the recommended market composite. If it has enough strong matches, give me that output, that composite. And then I'll go back up here. There we go. This last section I like to use because it's the guardrails section, and it's all about any methodology nuances that I want the AI to keep in mind as it makes those matches. Maybe we're not a huge organization, and so I don't want it in general to use these executive level matches that are available in potential surveys. So maybe I want to say, look, if it's a manager role, don't provide anything that's higher than like the management level 4 in surveys, because we're just not that large of an organization. Stuff like that, you can put in the guardrails, your custom methodology and other nuances, and it will honor. Well, great. That's the prompt. And again, this will be available, this exact same Word document will be available in that toolkit. So go ahead and use that. I'm going to go ahead and jump over now to the actual ChatGPT. And then be able to demonstrate that. Go and
This is great, Derek. While that's coming up,
yeah,
I wonder if you could talk to us real quickly about any mistakes that you discovered as you were going through this process. What mistakes, if any, did you make when you first started using AI to perform job matches?
Yeah, very, very good question. The mistake I did not want to make and was careful to avoid were mistakes in data security and privacy breaches. So that first and foremost, absolutely prevent that. Other mistakes I made, honestly, was in learning how AI, in this particular tool or setting, learning how AI acts and thinks, and trusting the responses before validating even more. And I guess really early on, my mistake really was not formatting it in a structured way like I just demonstrated or I just showed. Because earlier on, it's just like, yeah, great, give me the matches. And it gave it to me. It's like, okay, well, if I trusted those, a lot of the times it wasn't great in making the matches. And so there were instances where I got burned in terms of having an inaccurate match and pricing a job inaccurately. And so it was that iterative process that I realized eventually, like, oh yeah, I need to refine this more and more and more, and then test. That's another thing that is a huge takeaway in all of this is testing, validating that the tool is actually working and aligning with the human decisions. And so it actually took a lot of work to, go through finding matches for several jobs, and then doing it again using the AI tool, and then validating how well it's actually matching up with human decisions. So one of the big mistakes I made early on really was trusting the face value, the responses, without being able to validate deeper. And of course, along the way, optimizing, being able to validate that more quickly with the structured format. So
Makes sense. Makes
keep a
sense.
healthy level of skepticism. Don't trust at face value. That's one of the main learnings of this.
Well
Can you all
said.
see my ChatGPT window here?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, wonderful.
It's up.
So I'm in ChatGPT. Creating a project, if you haven't already, it's actually really simple. And it used to look a little differently. And I'm sure their user interface will continue to evolve. So just be aware of that. We're just going to go ahead and create a new one here. I hope that's large enough for everyone to see. And I'm just going to do, let's see, demo AI job matching assistant. Just to give it a good title. Great. If you want, you can go into the settings and create, a little bit of instructions. I'm just going to say drop in a job description and press enter, because that, honestly, with these instructions, that's all you need to do. And then this sources area is what you really want to focus on, at least set up initially. So in this sources area, I'm going to bring over and drop in those instructions, that Word document. And as I showed it to you, that's what I'm dropping in. So it's in a good format to be able to go ahead and start doing. And I'm also going to drop in some sample surveys that I've created for this, just a lot of dummy data for these purposes. There we go. I think one of them is actually BLS data too. So there's that. And I'm ready. I'm ready to go. And with these sources uploaded, they will stay here as permanent context, right? That artifice, permanent context, so that at any moment you can come back to this project and drop in a job description. I'm going to go ahead and demo a graphic designer too. And I don't even need to type anything in because it's all provided in this instructions. And just press go. That's it. Now, I highly recommend using the extended or the thinking model. All AI tools sort of have like an instant response and then a thinking response or thinking mode. Use the thinking mode. What I've deduced is that the thinking mode, it actually does all of its logic up front and can correct itself in its logic before providing a response. Whereas the quick response, sometimes, not sometimes, it starts responding without having finished its logic. And so it just sort of sometimes can like get off into the weeds and lead itself down the wrong path. So always use the thinking model if you can. Now this will take a little bit. On average, it takes between 3 and 5 minutes. I've actually created one just this morning using the exact same files you'll see here. And did a couple of different job descriptions, in fact, including one of this graphic designer one. And so I'll show you what it output. So again, you can see this consistent format. The job snapshot, it gives me sort of a summary of the job description. I can read through that and again, make sure that it's understanding the job that I'm understanding as well. So that's great. Then it gets into the top survey matches, which is sort of the meat of what this tool is intended to do. So starts with, survey at level 3 or survey number 3. Here's the job, graphic designer, artist, level 2. It got me that score based on that rubric that I defined for it. Here's the salary from that survey, fantastic. And then the reasoning. This is where we want to focus and make sure that, it's a good match and that it's explaining why it's a good match. And just awesome reasoning here, and it'd be great to do more. I feel like 2 to 4 sentences is sort of a good balance there. Survey 2 is the second match. Found this other match here. It's only a composite of 92, and again, don't necessarily trust this um, this rubric or this grading scale, but it's good to see that there are stronger matches than others, right? Where this one is going to be more like an 80. So at least you get some relativity as far as the strength goes among different matches, and not so much like, wow, this is a 94, and hey, I know in compensation courses that I've taken, we should do a 70% threshold, and that's above 70. Don't treat it that way. This is its own thing, and don't even trust that at face value. But you can trust it in terms of like a relative strength compared to others. So that's my caveat about these scores here. And then read through every single one of these reasonings, but it's much better than finding them on your own. And then the next major section being acknowledging the weaknesses or leveling guidance. Right here, don't default to manager supervisor roles. This job description doesn't manage with staff. And I just love that it calls it out and is very explicit about that. It basically says, I'm not going to match to manager roles. Don't overweight web only roles. Fantastic. Level up trigger. Hey, use survey, 2 career level, or survey level 3 only if the incumbent regularly leads complex projects. Otherwise, use their survey level 2. That is just such great logic that it's showing me that I can then use as a human to make a decision on the back end, and validate its decision, or choose to go a different direction than what it did. Anyway, worth reading through all of that. And then recommended market composite based on the strongest matches, only the strongest matches that it found. So it will logically find only the strongest and not have overlap between surveys or so forth, and then come up with that composite there. So let's check real quick and see if we have.
Derek, as it's coming up, I wonder have you found those explanations as to why this match was better than that one helpful when it comes to justifying your match to managers as they challenge you? Hey, this doesn't look right. This data doesn't look right. Why did you pick this? Do you find that helpful to just, I don't know, turn to your AI explanation of why that match was picked and just use that as your explanation to your manager? It seems like it would be, to me at least.
Yes. And another key takeaway is everything that AI does, it's a great start, but it should never be the finished project or product, right? Yeah. So yes, I have found that reasoning to be really good to use as a start, and then flesh it out more as humans. What could also be the next level, if you want to use that, is just in the chat say, hey, that match number 4 that you found, give me a little bit more reasoning and justification why, or why didn't you do this, or I would think that this is a weakness, and it will give more. And then that way it can help you develop a more polished response or a more complete response to, say, like a manager who's coming and asking for justification. It's a great question.
Very cool.
Such a powerful tool. So powerful. Anyway, it'll take its time, and I think we're sort of pressing up against our time limit. I've demonstrated a lot more, but you can see, I'll just go through one more, not in detail, but just to show you the format. This is for senior software engineer job, but it looked very similar to the format of Graphic Designer 2, the one that I just ran, and rightly so, because I want it to. And so it's the exact same format. It's very predictable. For every single job that I run through this tool, it does the exact same thing, but with different reasoning and justification and language that I can then, and again, the magic of all of this is to be able to quickly digest and discern what matches are out there and what ones are the best ones and not, so that I can take those, apply my human judgment, and then move on. So really, really powerful tool. Well, great. I'm going to then get rid of stopping sharing that. Wow. And go back to my presentation here.
And just to reiterate your point, this is not a set it and forget it type tool. This is a tool that is meant to be informative, help you get to your final decision quicker, but not to replace the final decision is humans to make. Yep.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That is a key in all of this. In terms of how well this actually makes those matches, this is what I have found so far as results. 60% align with human decisions very strongly. 60%, it's not 100%, but it is a majority. And so it is helpful. And about 20% were actually significantly different. And so, again, you should keep that healthy level of skepticism. What I would say to this is, I don't think that 20% of way offs is actually fair to the AI, because again, how we have our job descriptions written, I think a lot of hiring managers just can't write good job descriptions. And so I think a lot of that 20% represents just weakness in writing job descriptions. I think it's actually higher. And same with that 60%. I think that actually would be higher if we had good job description writing to begin with. So that's a whole other webinar and skill. But anyway, just know that, hey, it does really well. And I was also concerned about consistency, right? If I were to run this several times for the same job, and it does, a custom logic session for each job, will it arrive at similar results? Sure enough, it does. It does. I ran it for the same job description 10 different times, and I did this for 10 different job descriptions. And it was very consistent with that job description. In fact, that little composite at the very end, every single time, each of those 10 times for that same job description, the recommendation was always within 5% of all others. So that's great, but knowing that, 60% align with the human decisions, it can be consistently accurate or consistently way far off, but it's consistent in it at least. So have that in your mind. So in answer to my question, in short, how can AI help? How much can it help in terms of our situation? Well, I found, in the US side, it took about 4 to 5 minutes for that AI to run it, and then another 5 minutes for me to review and make the selection based on what it's suggesting. So it's about 10 minutes, really, for each job to match, compared to the 40 or so minutes that is just manual and human driven. That's about 30 minutes of savings per job. If we're evaluating 10 jobs per week, that's 5 hours of savings. That is significant. And if you're evaluating more, it can be even more. So that's time I could dedicate to more meaningful tasks. It has been quite impactful in terms of helping us. Again, quality is a concern, and so you always want to follow that up with a human judgment, and we've incorporated that into our time, which is great. So here's some key takeaways. Like I mentioned, it can save significant time and improve consistency in job survey matching. But AI provides only a great start, right? Human judgment is always needed, no matter what. You always have to follow it up with human review. And refining prompts and experimenting really is such a meaningful activity, not only to refine and improve the tool itself, but skill gaining for you. This is how I've learned how AI works and operates, and I can apply that to other things as well. So it's a meaningful activity, absolutely worthwhile undertaking. Refine your prompts, get in and experiment. I call it a sandbox for a reason, because you will get dirty, but you'll learn a lot along the way. So anyway, just ending up real quick with a quote from Andrew Ng here, who's the founder of Coursera, or deeplearning.ai. He says, AI can do anything that we are able to understand and specify, but it's limited to what we can define and imagine. Really, we are the drivers of this. And so, again, getting in and experimenting and finding out how we can do different things is going to drive the innovation. So anyway, that's the end. Dallin, I'll turn it back to you.
Wow, Derek, well said. I wish I had this 20 years ago when I started. This would have been so helpful. As much as I love the compensation world, as I said at the beginning, there's one part of my job throughout the last 25 years that has been a thorn in my side, and it is survey job matching. Yes, this would have made that a whole lot easier to endure. All right.
Amen.
Well, as you can see, there are a couple of QR codes. The one on the left will take you to that tool again. I saw a comment from somebody. There's a link as well in the comments if you're interested. And I'm going to open it up. If there are, go ahead. If you have any questions, insert them into the comments, and we'll get to them. But while we're waiting for those questions to come in, Derek, I'm wondering, maybe what's one thing that made you cautious before introducing AI into your process at Brigham Young University?
That is an excellent question. One thing that really was one of the main drivers of my hesitation before, jumping in feet and head first is the prevalence of hallucinations. And I started this, it was mid-year last year even, so a little bit longer than 8 months actually. And seeing all these examples of hallucinations and other flaws in AI, I did not want that to be incorporated into the logic that I wanted AI to undertake. And I didn't have great faith in AI, but honestly, that was a function of me just not knowing how well AI could be. And I think there's a lot of spotlight shed on hallucinations, and given sort of like like in the media. So that was my main hesitation. But really, as I dove in and learned more about AI and how it operated, I could then write a prompt that avoided getting into that hallucination trap if I was aware of it. And so there are ways that you can write a prompt to prevent hallucination or ensure that it acknowledges that it could hallucinate and then adjusts its logic. And then also just being aware on the back end of having that knowledge in my review to make sure and look for potential flaws or other hallucination cues. And hallucination is not the only flaw. It's probably the most concerning flaw for this activity because it provides a response that's wildly inaccurate or just off, but it looks good, visibly, and it's just like, okay, you can't trust it on the surface. So it's really understanding how AI operates. And honestly, that comes through getting in, experimenting, and then watching some videos, being aware of it, and then sort of looking for it as you play around with it. That was my main hesitation.
Awesome. I'm wondering if Trina, if you're out there, I want to invite you back in. I've got a question for you, Trina. You've used AI a little bit in your role.
Mm-hmm.
If someone's organization is hesitant about AI, what's your advice?
Yeah, I think there's one key thing I tell everybody to remember. AI is not a technology initiative, it's a people initiative. And when you start to deploy these different technologies, it's to solve a problem for a human, for a department, for it's problem solving, right, for humans. And I think a lot of times what I've seen is organizations will start to approach AI as a tech initiative in which they don't really focus on the people deployment, adoption. Are we using it correctly? The human in the loop, right? It really has a lot of human elements to it. And one of the biggest things is you'll get various levels of adoption, right? Our technologists really seem to lean into it, but you have others that have a lot of fear. And we have to go back to emotional intelligence and leadership and really connecting with the human element as to what is the hesitation and how do we address that. And so really meeting with your constituents, whoever's going to be adopting this, and addressing those head on. Like, what are your fears of utilizing this tool? Things came up as far as, are we going to expose, PII data or put ourselves at risk from a regulatory standpoint? Is this going to take my job? Right? Like, there's various levels of fears that are going to come up. And I think really starting at what could be those mindsets that could prevent success in deploying any AI tool. I think this is an incredible one, and one that's got lower risk because this is all public data, right? You can address that saying and address those things head on, of that you've done the tinkering, you've done the back and forth, you've done the validation steps, and just build that trust within the organization of what you've built and how you're adopting it. as part of the tool build itself. You've got to have the human element as well as the technology tied together to really drive success.
Well said.
Yeah, well said. Wow.
Well said. Well, this has been fantastic. Like you said at the beginning, Derek, none of us are experts, but none of us are really beginners either. We're all kind of in this together learning. I appreciate you taking your time to put this together, share it with everybody. At Hyper Equity, we are all about just trying to help everybody in the compensation world do better at what they do. And we want to provide you with tools, some of them being innovative and new to the market. And this is one of them. And thank you to Derek for being willing to put his work out there and let everybody share. It's been awesome. It's been great.
Yes.
Trina, any last words?
No, this has been great. I'm getting comments in the session. Thank you, Derek. I mean, really well done here. I think everybody's going to benefit from that. Cameron, thanks for your comment. All of the presentation, I think it's going to be a benefit to anybody that watches this and goes back and is able to digest all of the work and effort that you've put into building this out. There's going to be a lot of benefits here. So we're looking forward to continuing these sessions and appreciate your knowledge and experience here and sharing that with everyone. Coming up, we'll be scheduling our next event and webinar. So please subscribe to the newsletters at hyperequity.com so you're informed on those, and watch our page on both LinkedIn and YouTube for our next live sessions. We're seeing a lot of interest in the work that's happening with Hyper Equity and really enabling compensation management and improving merit cycles and all of these different things that we can leverage these technologies for. So appreciate everyone for being here today. Thank you to Dallin and Derek for your time, and we'll wrap it up from here. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.